Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Christian Banach with us today. Christian helps agencies land six and seven figures opportunity predictably. So one's going to be fun. I am also in that space, sort of in the GTM space, and love helping agencies grow. Agencies still one of my favorite business model nowadays. I think they're one of the simplest. They allow you to A/B test ideas and grow a scalable ecosystem of startups. So this podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start a podcast, you want to monetize a podcast, you can go to podfire.com. Chris, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, Charles. Well, thank you for having me on. Really looking forward to this conversation, especially given your background. I think we're going to have a really robust conversation. So my name is Christian Banach. I'm the founder of a business development and growth consulting firm. And as you mentioned, we help primarily advertising and marketing agencies. We also do a lot of work with consulting firms and other B2B companies. And our value proposition is to help them land 6 and 7 figure opportunities predictably. We've been around now for about 3.5 years and have worked with everything from some of the biggest global agencies down to smaller boutiques that might be, only, 10 or 20 people in size. But, they're generally coming to us for one or more of the same reasons. They probably have grown, primarily through word of mouth and referrals. And that has gotten them to a certain point. But inevitably, waiting for the phone to ring isn't a great growth strategy. And you really need to be doing something more proactive. And that's generally when they'll come to us.
How did you get in that space in the first place? Did you ever had an agency before? And why the getting 6 and 7 figure contracts?
Yeah, so I did have an agency, kind of an interesting growth trajectory for myself. I started a business in high school, which was at first, actually just producing kind of local events at nightclubs. And that quickly grew into large scale concerts with we worked with artists like Lady Gaga and Pitbull and T-Pain. And that was a great, run for me. And along the way, I got involved with experiential marketing. And what ended up happening is kind of fast forward to the recession of, 2008, 2009. And my business dried up kind of overnight. And like a lot of the clients that I advise now today, I was really a word of mouth and growth, word of mouth and referrals type of business. We didn't have a sales plan. We didn't have a lead generation machine. It was all word of mouth, and because of that, I needed to find a better solution. So I went out. I hired a sales consultant. They came in and they really helped me refine my process and open me up to this world of lead generation. And I kind of slugged along the business for a couple of years after, but I really, really loved the business development side. So I ended up closing down my company, sold some of the assets off, and I went to go work at advertising and marketing agencies then for about 10 years in a business development role. And I discovered along the way that, my, if you will, superpower is to kind of generate these top of funnel leads. And in particular, breaking into these bigger organizations, which takes a different mindset, a different approach than it is when you're targeting maybe small and mid-sized businesses. So kind of fast forward, it was the pandemic in 2020, and I had a great idea that it was time for me to start a business in the middle of a pandemic. So I ended up leaving the agency I was at the time, and I started this firm. And I really saw it as an opportunity, just like a consultant helped me 10 years prior, for me to give back and help other agencies that were struggling, especially in that pandemic time. And it's been a great run, and excited for what the future holds.
And at some point of your life, you had a debilitating injury. Your business was going south. You had 2 lawsuits and you had separation. How did you get back from that on your feet?
Yeah, it was, it was all around that same time, right around that recession. Like things just seemed to like kind of snowball. Everything was piling up all at once, and it wasn't an easy, time period to be honest. I think one of the areas that I think really helped me kind of get through that and become the person that I am today is I got really introduced into the world of personal development. I think before that, I'd heard about kind of Tony Robbins and motivational speakers and all that, and knew who they were, but I didn't really follow them. I thought, they were just sort of like, fluff, hoo-hoo, rah-rah type people. But I really gravitated, towards one book, Think and Grow Rich, which was one of the first personal kind of development books that I really got into. And that sort of like opened my eyes up to, a whole new way of thinking, a whole new world. I started getting into meditation regularly and started working more on myself. And I think in my old business, I had, and with all the things that were going on, I kind of let myself go a little bit and lost my own identity. And with this sort of reinvention that I was going through at the time, all of these little pieces kind of came together. I started, being more conscious of what I was eating and working out more. And, slowly but surely, the tides changed, and, I got some breaks along the way. And, I would love to say it was like one magic bullet or one thing that kind of turned it around, but it was a lot of little steps, over a period of time that, really helped me kind of transition and, open like a second chapter, if you will, for my life.
You manage all kinds of business early in your childhood, which is interesting, like a boy band. Did that help you develop a theory of everything in business? Like, what have you learned from managing different business in different verticals?
Yeah, I've always been entrepreneurial, starting, when I was probably in middle school, buying and selling baseball cards, trading them, I started a lawn service, when I was around the same age, and that just sort of, kind of grew. And as you mentioned, when I was first kind of getting started in the, concert promotions business, this was like the boy band era of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. So there was a local, group of guys here that, wanted some help. And, so I helped them. To be honest with you, I had no idea what I was doing at the time, but, they seemed to think that I had a good business mind. And so I, would help them get some bookings and advise them on certain things with their, their career. But yeah, I think all of that has, impacted, who I am today. Although I might be working in a very different industry, today, advising agencies, it's honestly really not that different as it is concert promotions, right? At the end of the day, you have a problem that people are trying to solve, and you are trying to provide, a solution for it. And, what I do today is very much like promoting, these agencies and trying to connect them with who they want to meet with. And in this case, they want to meet with these big brands. In the concert promotion days, it was helping these venues or these boy bands, sell concert tickets, to their venues. So the concepts are, really very similar when you kind of pull it back. And I feel like now with, the time that I've had and the wisdom that I've gained, like there are certain things I feel like I've been in this movie before. It might have some different characters, some different plot lines, but the theme, of what I'm experiencing here today is often very similar to what I experienced back in the day.
And nowadays, what kind of problems do agencies face in the GTM realm? Is it not knowing what outreach channel to prioritize? Is it a tech stack problem? Is it not having a different offer or targeting a specific ICP that's niche enough? Tell us about the top 3 problems that agencies face.
Yeah, I think in many cases, it's all of those, right? We see a wide array. I think a lot of agencies that come to us, they've kind of come to us because they've grown primarily through more word of mouth referrals. So because of that, their business has grown in a lot of different directions based on who their networks happen to be. So that might mean they're working with, across various different niches, different sizes of companies, different types of work. So while that's great if you're kind of growing organically, if you're going to be, trying to do something more proactive, you really got to stand for something, or you're really standing for nothing. So a lot of the work that we do kind of initially is to set that foundational work and help with their positioning, help define, what is that unique value proposition, what are the problems that they solve for clients. So, that's a lot of the work we do kind of foundationally for clients. And some clients come to us and they kind of have that figured out already. Others need that type of work. Another area that I think a lot of agencies struggle with, especially when we're talking about the larger, these kind of mid-sized agencies that are trying to get into the larger accounts, is there's a lack of brand awareness. They might now know who they are and who they want to target, but who they want to target doesn't know who they are. So, helping them build awareness, not to everybody in the market, but just in that particular niche that they're trying to, target. So we're doing a lot of work there. One of the tactics that we have, seen a lot of, and channels that we've seen a lot of success with there is having a thought leadership email newsletter. That has been a really great way for agencies to build awareness as well as nurture prospects over time. And then I would say the last part is just the ability to generate leads. They might have the foundation done, they might even have some awareness, but it still takes that proactive, boots on the ground, so to speak, to actually get out there and generate, leads. And that's where we'll also come in and we'll either do it for clients, we kind of done for you model, or we're advising clients on what they could do. And, the tactics can kind of range, but I mean, a lot of what we're doing, is still based on, email and cold calling, but done in a very strategic way, because it's gotten harder and harder. I'm sure all of our inboxes have been flooded with, sales emails, and just seems like it's increasing, day over day. So it's harder to get the attention of prospects, through email. So you have to really be thoughtful in your strategy and how you personalize those messages, and what you're offering these prospects as well. So that's kind of an array of, some of the problems we see and how we're helping clients address that.
I'm seeing one of your strengths also seems to be storytelling. Are agency owners telling enough stories nowadays?
It's interesting, right? Because agencies, that's what they do for their clients, in many cases, right? They help them tell stories. But, I'm sure anybody listening that's in the industry has probably heard the cliche of the cobbler's kids have no shoes, right? It's it's hard to see, the label when you're inside of the jar. And I think a lot of agencies struggle with that. While they have the ability and they know how to do kind of storytelling, they really struggle to do it for themselves. And I think we can probably all relate to that. If you ever had to fill out like a profile on social media or something like that, it's hard to talk about yourself. And so I do think, agencies in many cases, do struggle with that. And it's hard for them to really have that perspective and point of view. I mean, we hear it from time and time again from agencies, like, our people are the best, our process, our clients love us, culture, but these are every client that I work with makes the same types of claims. So it's not differentiating, and those things might all be true, but from a prospect's perspective, it's sort of noise. They hear it all the time. So it is challenging for agencies to come up with kind of a unique and different story that resonates, with prospects.
What have you learned from your time working with celebrities? Are these people built different? Do they just entertain a better persona? Do these people actually sell and think about their product? Are they good business people?
Yeah, my experience, I mean, I haven't, gotten to know them at a very deep level. It's very much, at the events or, kind of leading up to it. So I can't say that, many of them have become personal, friends. But what I can tell you is that I think there might be a perception that these are just either a person with some God-given talent or someone that's really pretty and they kind of just show up and make money and they go home. And I think, what I've seen in the back end is that these people work extremely hard, almost to the level of an obsession. And I think, a lot of people don't realize that. And that's been my experience, that the people that I've been able to get to know a little bit deeper, they really, take their craft extremely seriously. And yes, they do have God-given talents in many cases, or yes, they are pretty, but they also have this sort of innate, ability to focus and commit themselves to something that I think is admirable. And I think it often gets overlooked because you always see them on the red carpet or, on TV or all the glamorous stuff, but you don't see the behind the scenes that's happening, nor did you see the 10, 20, 30 years that they've put in to mastering that craft. You just see, the final result, of them on a music video or something. So yeah, I think there's a lot to learn about the work ethic of these folks.
And tell us about your obsession. What are the good sides of obsession? What are the downsides? And how do you increase the upsides of it and mitigate the downsides of obsession?
Yeah. I think I have a little bit of that, in myself. I think that's been a driver of me over the years. I think there's some people, when I find something that I like to do, I go all in. And it's ranged. When I was a young kid, I wanted to be a magician. And there was a 2-3 year period where that's all I could do was, worry about magic, outside of school and whatnot. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, and I had and that's what I want to do. And I was like singularly focused at that. Today, I kind of have two, passions. One is the business that I have, and now I've, found pickleball, and that's become a little bit of an obsession for myself. But with that, I mean, there are pros and there are cons. I think I've gone through a period where I've told myself, Christian, you shouldn't, go all in like that. You need to be more balanced. And, because that's what society, I think, tells us that we need this balance. But I think people are wired in different ways. And for me, I get enjoyment along the journey. I like the grind. I like, the constant, like trying to get better. Other people aren't like that. So maybe for them, the balance and the diversity is more important. But for me, I think I've been, as I've gotten older, I've embraced, how I'm wired better, and we'll see. I'm sure this will evolve and change, over time. But and I'm sure there are drawbacks and that happen. But I think there's a lot of pluses, that happen because of this as well.
You also found an obsession in pickleball. Tell us about the parallels between sport, athleticism, and business.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels to it, and I think it, kind of a little bit of what I was talking about earlier with the work ethic that the celebrities and some of these other people that they have. I think the same thing goes, with being an athlete. And what I, really like about, pickleball is it's very measurable. Everybody's assigned kind of a score. They call it a duper score. And, you start off, you might be a 2.0, and then you try to get, higher and higher, as you go, and you can get into, bigger and better tournaments because of the score. And it's very much like, running a business, right? You start off, you're making no money, and then you're making a certain amount, and then you're trying to get to the next level. So I see some parallels, between, that, but, more than anything, I think it's that dedication that you have to have, and you have to love, what you're doing as well. I think, it's easy to, kind of criticize athletes when they have a bad day or something, but they're humans as well. They're living lives just like all of us are as well. So, I think sports has been, a really big part of my life from when I was a little kid, dreaming to be on the Chicago Cubs to now, trying to maybe join the pro pickleball circuit at some point in time here. But I think it's the same thing. It's just continuing to grind it out, and you have to enjoy the journey or you're not going to last very long.
Talking about your daughter, if she wants to start a business one day, what kind of lessons would you have for her?
Yeah, I do think my daughter is going to be following in the footsteps when it comes from an entrepreneur standpoint. She has had a little bit of an entrepreneur in her, even since she was very young. I remember one day she came home, and this is maybe third grade, and she dumped about $30 onto my desk, and I'm like, where did this money come from? And apparently she was selling candy in school and doing all these little things that I had no idea any of this was happening, but she just took it upon herself to do that. So I was really proud of her, for that. I did have to tell her to stop because it's technically against the school rules, but I did enjoy her entrepreneurialism. Yeah, I think, in terms of, her trajectory, I do think for me, I started a business right out of high school, like I had mentioned. And then I ran that for about 15 years. Then I went to go work for someone else for about 10 years. And then I started this latest business. And I think me going to work for somebody for that 10 years was the best experience that I could have had, because I was really, while I had that entrepreneurialism, those 15 years, what I learned working for someone else and what to do and also what not to do was huge. I don't know if you have to spend 10 years, but part of my advice to her as she would graduate college, I think, unless you have this like billion-dollar idea right away, then maybe you need to pursue it right away. But I think there is value in going to work, somewhere else first, and then gaining some experience, what it's like to manage people, look at, what is a good manager, what is a bad manager, what's office culture like, all of those types of things I think are really valuable, that you're not going to be taught necessarily in school, that you just have to experience. And I know for at least me, it took me from, being maybe this level of an entrepreneur up, multiple levels by going to work for somebody else. So that would be one thing that I would encourage her, to do. And then, at the end of the day, you have to find something that you really enjoy doing, where, you don't see it as work. And I don't see what I do as work. I don't even like using the word work, because this is just who I am and what I do. And the fact that I can get paid money to do it is, all the more better.
Where can people find out more about you, Chris?
Yeah, I would say that the best place to go would be our website, my website, which is christianbanach.com. We have an email newsletter on there. I do write a weekly motivational story that has kind of like a business twist to it as well. And you can find me on all the social media channels with my name, Christian Banach, as well.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was Christian Banach. And if people want to